Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of the Balterra Wellness Podcast. Again, I'm Jose Barbosa, and I'm here with Christina King, who has joined me to help us understand why I built Balterra, what is going on in the industry, so a little bit of insights into that transparency, behind the scenes look, and some very great nutritional topics around creatine and women's health. Christina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jose. I'm so excited to be here. We have a lot of great content for you guys today, and hopefully we can clear a lot of things up.
Christina, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
So I have been in the supplement industry for a little over 13 years, many of those years working with Jose at MegaFood. So I'm not new to the industry, but I'm new to a lot of the ingredients. I have a curious consumer lens on the industry. So I'm aware of a lot of the things that people may be confused about, and I'm hoping to clear that up for you.
And one of the things Christina was wondering is around women's health and how that is playing a key role in the supplement space today, because historically there's been some confusion or challenges behind it. So it's a great topic for today, and we can get right into it.
Let's tell everybody why you wanted to do this.
No, I think it's very important to talk about, one, why Balterra even exists, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet. And then two, we have an amazing opportunity to bring women's health to a new platform, to a new level that it's very exciting. And I think there's a great opportunity to bring that to the audience and to see how we can bring that to life.
So what is Balterra to you?
Balterra, first off, is balance of earth. And we did that on purpose because we believe that you have to have a balance in life, not just in your actions, your activities, and what you're doing throughout the day, but what you ingest and what you consume, not in foods and in supplementations of that food. So Balterra came to life almost a year ago, and we're aimed at bringing solutions that are efficacious, but at the same time, they're also very balanced. We're not vegan and vegetarian exclusive, but we definitely have vegan and vegetarian options, as well as animal-based options.
So when you formulate your products, you're saying, I'm looking for the most simple formulation that's the most effective.
Exactly. And that simplicity is hard. There's an aspect of difficulty in simplicity, and we're trying to make it very clear for everyone. Our tagline is wellness made clear. And we do that so that we do the hard part first. We identify formulations that fit that proposition and or develop formulations that fit that proposition. So what we're bringing to the consumer is always built on simplicity, and that's a very difficult thing to do.
Especially in this industry.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your background.
So I've been a product formulator for over 25 years. And what that means is I have a degree in food science. You can also have a degree in pharmacokinetics and some other related scientific fields. And I've worked for companies like PepsiCo, Keurig, DSM, and MegaFood. So of those 25 years, the last about 10 to 12 have been in the vitamin, mineral, and supplement space. And in those years, it highlighted the opportunity to bring education closer to the consumer, because education doesn't necessarily increase revenue, and it's a very difficult thing to accomplish and not get that return. So getting consumers closer to the science, getting them closer to what it means to them is something that I believe we can bring to the table. It's not going to be easy, but it's something that I feel a passion for, and I think that we can unlock that little by little.
Was there anything that you realized about the VMS space specifically that was frustrating as a formulator, or just something you wanted to do differently for Balterra?
That's a fantastic question, because the answer is absolutely yes. There's a lot of confusion in the supplement space. There's a lot of consumers that are dubious about taking supplements because they don't, number one, understand them, which is not good. And number two, because there are players in the industry that give the industry what I'll call a black eye. Most likely not intentional, but there's an element of moving quickly, putting products out there that may not have efficacious doses. We've talked in previous episodes about pixie dust. And pixie dust, what that means is you use ingredients at levels that are not efficacious in your body. And many brands do that because they want to bring a health halo. They're not doing it intentionally, but they're missing the point on just adding it for the sake of adding it to bring a health halo is not enough. And consumers then feel like they're wasting money when they buy proprietary blend of this or proprietary blend of that. They don't understand. They think it's fantastic. They start using it, and then the routine falls apart because they're not seeing results. So there's an element of really bringing that efficacy to consumers, and that's why Balterra exists today.
I love that. Let's explain to the listener what a proprietary blend is.
Yes, great point. So proprietary blends are blends of ingredients that are built in order to do a couple things. The first thing is you want to protect your intellectual property because you spent a lot of time, money, and effort building a formulation. So you protect that with proprietary blends. That's a very good thing to do. The problem is proprietary blends then don't automatically require you to disclose what's in that blend. And if you're not disclosing what's in the blend, sometimes you then cloud the transparency that the consumer is looking for. So that's the bad side. And in that cloudiness, you may inadvertently not add enough of a particular ingredient, and then you stack up multiple ingredients with very low doses. They're not efficacious. And again, you get back to the part where the consumer is frustrated because you're not seeing results at the end of a long routine, and they get confused as to whether they should be taking supplements or not.
That makes sense. On the subject of regulatory and proprietary blends, some confusion that is in the consumer space is that supplements aren't regulated. Can you speak to that?
Yes, and that's actually a little frustrating because, first off, very clearly, supplements are regulated. They're just not regulated the way drugs and pharmaceuticals are regulated. So there's a big difference in how drugs that are meant to cure illnesses or diseases are, and the regulations behind that, versus a supplement that is not meant, or you cannot place supplements in the category of curing diseases. So there's a different set of regulations. Starting in 1994, SHEA regulations kind of overarchingly gave supplements a regulatory framework. And from then on, there are many different ways supplements are indeed regulated. Now, within those regulations, there are some areas where it could be either more defined. Supplements are moving, the innovation behind supplements is moving at 100 miles an hour. So you have to try to keep up with that innovation. Peptides are brand new. Liposomals are brand new. They go through different ways in your body and into your system that regulations need to understand how that works. So I can see where some consumers are confused as to whether supplements are regulated. I can see where many are accustomed to seeing the regulations behind pharmaceuticals not being applied to supplements and then assuming that supplements are not regulated. And that is a disservice to both the consumer and the supplement industry. So we'll get there. There's a lot of regulations that are coming down the pike that continue to enhance and level up, setting the bar even higher for regulations. But brands need to be aware of it. Third-party vendors like Amazon and some others, they are also upping their bar and saying not just anybody can come in and start selling supplements. You need to pass certain criteria. So consumers are more and more protected, and that's a fantastic thing to do. But I think we need to really clarify that supplements are indeed regulated.
Is there anything that would show up on a label or that a consumer could look up ahead of time before purchasing a supplement that could build that trust for decent regulation?
Yes, the answer is not easily though. I think that doing your own research, first off, I would recommend everyone to do your own research before you take anything, especially if you're taking medications. But and talking to your physicians, talking to healthcare practitioners, and anybody who has an interest in your health is critical. But your own research is paramount to understanding what are you putting in your body and why. Now, it's not easy. There's a lot of information out there. Not all of it is good information. Scientists and regulatory bodies look for what's called the gold standard study, and it kind of tells you a couple different things. The study is robust from a statistical standpoint. The study, it has the right dose of the ingredient that you are claiming on pack. So gold standard studies really help bring that clarity, but you kind of need to know what you're looking for, and that takes a certain level of interest to find that. So it's not easy.
Third-party certifications are often plastered all over supplement labels. What do they mean?
Great question. And that's another area where it gets a little confusing for consumers, because every supplement has a third-party certification on their label. So then what does it mean? And I think what you need to look for in general are very basic certifications. Number one, do you have a product that was manufactured in what's called a CGMP, or good manufacturing process? And what that means is the safety criteria that manufacturer goes through is audited by the right entities, and therefore the product that's coming out of it should be, and many times is considered, safe. And that's very basic, because what you are ingesting is not going to harm you, and that's important. So that's a very basic certification. Then it gets more complex on top of that. If you're looking for religious implications, you may have certifications behind things like kosher or halal, and that ties into your diet as well. Then finally, you can get into very intense certifications that certify that those products don't have an active or something that will bring improper test results to athletes, because it's very important for athletes to be very careful with what they ingest. They don't want to test positive for something that could then cost them their career. So those types of certifications exist. So now there's different levels. For Balterra, what we're looking for now is very standard basic certifications, and we may take certain products into other categories as we're looking for different types of consumers, but we are aimed at the general population. We want everybody to have a routine around not just their exercises, but also around their supplements. So you'll see third-party certifications on our labels, meaning they're safe to consume.
So you could say a third-party certification is like what OSHA is to workers.
Yes.
Third-party certification is like safety for what you're ingesting.
Correct. The very standard ones, absolutely. There are certifications out there that don't require an audit like an OSHA audit, but for the most part, you are correct.
Hi, I'm Yelena, R&D leader and co-founder of Endless Thesis. If you're curious how science, leadership, and real-world experience come together, check out Beyond the Lab Coats. It's more than just a book. It's a journey through flavor, innovation, and growth. Visit endlessthesis.com and start thinking differently today.
There's so much out there in the supplement space for women, but it feels like it hasn't always been that way.
You know,
Has something changed?
That's a very good topic to bring up, because historically women have been underrepresented in studies, and there's different reasons for that. Again, not all malicious. There's just the original understanding, or belief, I should say, that women have a more complex body. So they used male subjects to substitute for women, and then bring solutions to women, but studied in males. So that has recently started to change. The tide has turned. I don't know necessarily how far back it has turned, but you can start seeing things as early as the early 2000s. And that's a good sign. And I think that we're getting there, but we're not there yet. And a lot of gold standard studies need to be done on the subjects that you're aiming to deliver the solution for. So it's getting better. An area, for example, that could be further explored is creatine. Creatine has there's thousands of studies on creatine, and they're all on males. Not all. I should be careful with that. But for the most part, if you look at the percentage of studies on creatine, the majority are male. And there's a big opportunity to start to move towards, well, what does it mean for females, and females at a different age in their life? So big opportunities. And I'll throw in, kids are a little bit harder because you need consent from adults. If there's any adverse effects, it gets very tricky. So most companies tend not to do a lot with kids. So kids are a population or a segment that is a little harder. But women, it should be easily addressed. And I'm glad to see studies start to move that way, but there could be a lot more.
So where do supplements fit into women's health overall?
That's a good question, because supplements, if used properly, can fit in all aspects of a woman's lifestyle. Everything from waking up in the morning, getting ready to go to work, traveling and protecting your immunity because you're traveling so much. After school activities and nighttime when you're exhausted after a productive day and you need to wind down and or keep your energies level up because you're still not done for the rest of the afternoon. So supplements fit everywhere. I think the key there though is you have to understand your routine, you have to understand your deficiencies, and then optimize based on all of your parameters. And then it'll become a lot better from an efficacious standpoint and from a position of helping you feel like you're accomplishing more.
There are a lot of narratives around creatine. It's so big right now, but is it just for athletes or gym bros or men?
Great question. And creatine is one of those that it's unfortunate that there's so much confusion around because it's such a beneficial ingredient. There's a lot of things out there that are thrown out that say creatine is one of the most studied ingredients. And that is actually true. Like we mentioned before, already there's thousands of studies, and for any given ingredient, that's a lot. If you look at omega-3s, very studied ingredient, thousands of studies. If you look at something like Shatavari, very little tiny studies on that as of today. Now, creatine sits somewhere on the DHA or omega-3 space. Lots of studies around it. And that's the first thing that consumers need to know. It's a very well-studied ingredient. The second thing is it is gaining mainstream adoption, but it came from professionals and athletes and gym bros that were building their muscles because creatine helps address muscle energy. You may hear things like ATP. ATP actually stands for adenosine triphosphate, but what you need to know is it's like a little battery in your cell, and creatine helps recharge that battery. So all of your cells use a lot of energy, whether you're thinking, processing, typing away at a computer, believe it or not, or actually doing physical exercise. So gym bros and people who worked out in the gym made it popular, or they brought it to the mainstream population. Now that it's here, it is a very good ingredient to use for general wellness, general health, energy. If you're doing a lot of strenuous exercises, if you're doing a lot of research on whether it be a PhD that you're working on or something like that, you need that energy because that energy continues to be drained out of your body, and creatine is a very good ingredient to help replace that.
What can you expect from taking creatine consistently as a regular person, not someone who works out excessively? What does it do for the everyday folks?
Good question. I think there's a lot of things that creatine brings to the table that are positive and very few minor things you just need to be aware of. And I'll start with those. The first thing you need to be aware of, you may find yourself a little bloated because it absorbs water very well. And that absorption of water then creates that sensation of being bloated, and or you may gain a little bit of water weight. But what you need to know is that evens out, right? Your body's not used to consuming something like that, and it evens out. And therefore, what it then does, it brings a lot of that energy to your cells. Another aspect of creatine that you may need to know from a usage standpoint is there could be some confusion around loading or cycling. Again, comes from the gym culture. I'll call it the gym culture, but they loaded creatine in advance of a workout for about a week. They took 20 grams instead of the 5 grams that is normal consumption of 3 to 5 grams of creatine. That loading phase, as a regular consumer, you don't need to do that. Can you do that? Of course you can. But then taking it over time is much more important. You're going to see your energy levels continue to remain relatively high. And you're also potentially, there are some studies starting to show some cognitive benefits. Now, again, talking about regulatory entities and talking about longevity studies or gold standard studies in the right population. That we still need in order to really say cognitive health, but you're going to see that being thrown around a lot because there's already initial indication that it can be a very beneficial nutrient for cognitive. So that's yet to be seen. A lot more to come around that type of science, but it's very promising. Another aspect of creatine is that every cell uses it, not just muscle cells. And that's important distinction because many people, again, through the gym culture, believe that it's only for your muscles. And that's not necessarily true. Another aspect of the benefits of creatine is connected to longevity or healthy aging. So some of those studies are also still a little more on there's an indication that it could help there rather than for certain, but it's very promising on the longevity, what people call anti-aging. That's, again, a little bit extreme, but overall wellness throughout your lifestyle, mobility. As you continue to age, your mobility and your energy levels tend to decrease, and creatine helps maintain that or keep those levels up. So there's an aspect of longevity, and that is important for creatine consumption.
Good to know. Good to know.
A very important part of creatine consumption is a very obvious one, but it should be stated, and that is recovery. So as you're fatigued, your muscles are fatigued, you're fatigued, creatine helps with recovery. And that's a little obvious. Most people who take creatine understand that benefit, but if you've never taken creatine before, understanding the recovery aspect is important. You also mentioned, how long does it take, or what does a routine look like? And most studies are conducted around 8 weeks, so about 60 days. And in those 60 days, that's when you're going to start to see a lot of the benefits, the balancing of your body, getting used to that consumption. Sounds like a lot, but it's actually not that much. As a matter of fact, we would encourage researchers to do more than 8 weeks and extend studies much longer. So it really needs to be part of your daily routine because it makes it a lot easier for you to continue to take and for your body to use it properly.
When we're talking about adding it into our routine, would we want to do it pre-workout, post-workout, morning, afternoon, evening? What makes the most sense for creatine?
Good question. And the answer is however you prefer. Now, I will see the gym bros in the audience will be like, wait a minute, you need to take a pre-workout. Yes, and I don't disagree. Pre-workout definitely allows for that energy to be available when your muscles are fatigued. So there's a sense that in pre-workout, it's very obvious to take. But if you're not really concentrated on building specifically your muscle size, then the answer is really at any time. And the closer you are to intense activity, the more likely you're going to see results because that's what it was studied in. Most studies are on intense exercise, not a lot of studies. And you're starting to see them come through nowadays with cognition, memory, brain stores of creatine. Then you're going to see some studies that aren't after or during intense workout, but it's usually a pre-workout routine.
So for the everyday person who's not doing intense workouts and just wants to see the benefit, whatever's most convenient.
Correct. If it's
whatever's going to make you take it consistently.
Yes.
Is there anything that would be beneficial to pair with creatine?
Yeah, a lot of things can be paired with creatine. Since you only need about 3 to 5 grams, it can go with almost anything. The way I use it actually is with protein. So actually we have protein right here. It happens to be chocolate. I put creatine, chocolate, and some people use their choice of milk. That's also important to your diet. I happen to use cow's milk and I put creatine and plant-based protein in there, which is an interesting combination on its own. But you can start to see where stacking makes sense as long as you're taking the right dose of each of those ingredients.
Is there anything else that creatine could mix well with or be put into a routine with?
Yes. And I'll actually think of one, since we've been on the topic of women, that I think is very exciting. It may be a little bit of a prelude to what Balterra is up to, but if you think about Shatavari, which I mentioned before, those studies are really geared towards women's perimenopausal, menopausal states, and the results and the outcomes are incredibly exciting and positive. So if you think about general wellness, if you pair a creatine with something like Shatavari, that starts to become a really good stack for women. So the studies showing the positive results of Shatavari alongside everything we know about creatine makes it a wonderful stack if people are looking for something that is unique, that hopefully tastes very good, and that will be part of your routine to take for a long time.
So can you explain a little bit about what Shatavari is and why a user would be interested in it?
Yeah, Shatavari is an up-and-coming ingredient. Not a lot of people know about it. The industry has a lot of buzz. The supplement industry has a lot of buzz around this ingredient. And I'll explain it simply. Shatavari is to asparagus as carrot is to parsley. So carrots and parsley, very similar, but not the same. And asparagus is very similar to Shatavari, but not the same. And they're in the same family. Shatavari is a type of root similar to ginger and turmeric. And the effective dose of Shatavari right now that has been studied is 300 milligrams of Shatavari. So that's important because you can't just throw in the nutrient expecting results. You have to use the right dose that's been studied at. So Shatavari is an up-and-coming ingredient. Lots of people haven't heard about it, and it's a little bit hard to pronounce. It's from the Ayurvedic medicine, or traditional medicine, mostly from India. And that in itself has a traditional lore that many people would resonate with.
I love that. So what are the benefits that are expected from using Shatavari consistently?
Great question. And again, it's up and coming, so there's a lot of different research that needs to be continued to surface and be analyzed. However, from the Ayurvedic medicine and holistic standpoint, they've traditionally been used for hormonal balance, which is very important in the states of perimenopausal, menopausal for women. The second is women's what they call vitality. So if you're talking about creatine bringing energy, Shatavari brings that brightness to that energy and the vitality in a woman's health. So all of these terms, again, need to be better defined and specifically targeted for something, but those research results are still being tested today. Now, having said that, traditional medicine has long histories of showing it in thousands upon thousands of use cases. And women's hormonal balance, women's vitality, and even to some extent, stress adaptation. But a lot of those studies are with ashwagandha along with it, another interesting Ayurvedic ingredient. So Shatavari fits a little bit of that spectrum of stress-related energy, hormonal balance. So it's all interconnected. But what is really exciting for me is seeing it come through for hormonal balance in perimenopausal, menopausal women that has been studied in. That is incredibly exciting.
That sounds like a great ingredient. I personally haven't researched that a lot, but I will be after this.
This episode of the Balterra Wellness Podcast is brought to you by Balterra Incorporated, bringing trust back into the supplement space. Remember, stay balanced, stay clear. Now back to our show.
You touched on pairing it with creatine. Why is that an interesting combination?
I think it's a match made in heaven for women. You have the benefits of the battery of your cells with the controller on some of the hormonal changes that are in constant flux. And if you bring those two together, you should feel a very strong, you should see your vitality, your energy, your productivity should consistently be met. A lot of times my wife complains, I'm tired. I need more energy. There's not enough time in a day, right? And I feel it too. Mm-hmm. I may take some of it as well because even though it's studied in women, it's going to work in males similarly or in reverse to what we've seen in the past where it was studied in male and still works in females. But that energy, that vitality, that support, because life is busy and life gets real really fast. So having that type of energy throughout the day from beginning to end is, I think, going to be a game changer.
So it sounds like it could bring more consistency to an overall wellness perspective. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. That's consistency of I'm consistently feeling like I can tackle it. I can do a lot of the things that before we would do them, but we're struggling through that. So it really brings that uplifting energy that many people search for, and specifically women.
I can definitely relate to that for sure.
Another benefit of the blend is that if you look at creatine, that's the physical support. If you add the Shatavari, that's the physiological support. So together, that physical plus physiological system, again, is that match made in heaven. But it comes down to also the dose. And if we know the dose of creatine, 3 to 5 grams, we know the dose now of Shatavari, 300 milligrams, you pair that correctly, that's properly stacking an ingredient or a system to help the well-being of the particular target group, in this case, it's women.
So if someone is listening to this and thinking, okay, I want to try this right now, what should they look for?
You would need to look for a couple different things. We've mentioned some of it, or we've alluded to some of it. One, simplicity. You don't need to go crazy. It's creatine, it's Shatavari. You don't need much more. Now, Shatavari doesn't taste very well, so you need a purposeful formulation, one that allows you to bring the proper taste forward, the proper experience forward. And we've mentioned many times the proper dosing. That's key. You can't cut corners. You shouldn't be adding anything at a pixie dust level, which we've said multiple times. And finally, the part where Balterra does best is no unnecessary fillers. A lot of people have asked me already, what happens? My creatine doesn't dissolve well. And I think there's an aspect of, yes, that's correct. It doesn't need to fully dissolve. It just needs to dissolve enough that your body can consume it and use it. If it dissolves too well, you're probably adding something in there to make that happen. And that potentially some people or many consumers would feel that's unnecessary. There's a natural consumption of that ingredient that is going to be absorbed and utilized, and it doesn't necessarily need extra help. So that purposeful formulation, the simplicity behind it, and the proper dosing combined with unnecessary fillers is that key sweet spot. And that's why we may be working on something ourselves, because it is a very simple yet difficult thing to achieve. And I'll show you a glimpse of it. This is an R&D sample right now, so it's not ready for prime time, but we're very excited to have already started working on this formulation.
Has a little vanilla smell.
That's right. Good catch. There are elements of Shatavari that make it a little bit hard to formulate with. So we'll see how we continue to refine this in a way that tastes good, smells good, and you can use it in your routine. But we're super excited about it because it's an area that really needs attention.
So there's a lot of creatine forms out there. Which one did you choose and why did you choose that?
Good question. And this is where it can get confusing for consumers. We chose the form of creatine called creatine monohydrate. There's other forms, creatine HCl, which stands for hydrochloride. There's other forms of creatine as well. But the most studied form of creatine is creatine monohydrate. And the other forms show some positive direction for more absorption or more utilization, and therefore translates into a better outcome. But the studies are not strong. They're not statistically significant. The creatine monohydrate has been studied up, down, left, and right, and there's no need to continue to try to enhance something that's already very bioavailable and can be consumed and utilized very easily. So you don't need to overthink it. And that's the simplicity part of Balterra, where it works. Creatine monohydrate works. You don't need to worry about not having enough in your body or it not being utilized or something like that. So for the most part, we stick to what is already been studied and proven or shown to be effective at those doses. Creatine monohydrate fit that bill. So again, it may not dissolve very well. There's no fillers in there. There's nothing in there that is extra. But in that simplicity, there is a lot of value.
So when it comes to creatine, it's one ingredient, it's the studied dose, and that is backed by science.
Correct. Simple as that.
Something you can trust.
That's
wellness made clear. Let's do some quick myth busting.
All right, I like it.
Specifically on creatine. Is it going to make me bulky?
No, absolutely not. That's definitely a myth. If you have the right dose with the right consumption use, you're not going to get bulky.
And will it make me bloated?
Yes, it could make you bloated. You may find yourself, until you equalize or until you're accustomed to taking it, you may initially feel bloated, but that should go away relatively quickly.
So consistent use, that will even out.
Correct.
Is creatine safe long term?
Absolutely. We've mentioned many times, thousands upon thousands of studies. It is incredibly safe for all ages except kids, which hasn't been studied a lot. So anything above kids, very safe.
Do women need a different dose than men?
No, the studies have shown between 3 grams and 5 grams, and I usually default to 5 grams, is exactly what everybody needs.
Is creatine just for bodybuilders and high intensity athletes?
Absolutely not. Even though they obviously would benefit from it, no. A general consumer who's interested in increasing their energy levels, recovery, and general well-being should be consuming creatine. So Christina, thank you so much for interviewing me today and getting us closer to the game. I think a lot of consumers are very interested in what's behind the scenes. Tell me, did we do a good job? How are you feeling about it? And what do you think about everything we've spoken about today?
I think there's so much out there online, studies, this information. I think I've had a lot of these questions myself. Hopefully we worded it in a way that was approachable and transparent. I feel better about it personally, but hopefully what we've given today helps the listener feel more empowered to make their own decisions.
Thank you very much, everybody. This has been another episode of the Balterra Wellness Podcast series. Thank you, Christina, for being with us today. And remember, everybody, stay balanced, stay clear.
Thanks for listening to the Balterra Wellness Basics and Advanced Podcast. Your host for this episode was Jose Barbosa. We thank our guest host, Christina King, for joining us on the show. Production, editing, and technical support were provided by Eric Santana. This episode was brought to you by Endless Thesis Holdings and Balterra Incorporated. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional regarding any health concerns or before starting any supplement, diet, or wellness program. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.